You're listening to Ricky and Jimmy on Relationships, the show where we uncover the thoughts and behaviors that are sabotaging your relationship and what you can do about it. Jimmy and I are passionate about sharing the ways that imperfect partners like you and I can shift unhealthy relational dynamics and create closeness. So welcome. Drop your defenses and open your heart, eyes, and ears. Let's learn how to be the best partner we can be together.
All right, let's dive right in. This one is a good one. And I get this question a lot. It's from Kelsey. What if your partner says they don't believe in therapy?
Ooh.
What would you say to that? You know what? I started it out real dark and deep. And you know what?
We can start dark and then bring it up.
I love that.
Episode goes.
People love when you start out real dark. And then
I think so. You hear everyone logging off right now?
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
I think that's a really, really common attitude, though. There are so many people who believe that therapy is just a bunch of quacks trying to take people's money, and I think that's a very. I know that when my ex-husband and I went to couples therapy, he did not think that guy was going to be able to do anything for us at all, and it's a tough one because walking into couples therapy with that kind of an attitude, it's probably not going to go great.
Yeah, that's so important because that attitude is just so destructive. And I want to be as empathetic as I can towards people that are, because there might be some underlying feelings that aren't really being addressed, such as just a fear of being labeled as the problem. I mean, who wants to go? We might have talked about this before. Who wants to go into counseling when you feel like all your spouse does is label you as the problem, and now maybe they've even had some sessions one-on-one, and now you're going in after X amount of sessions. Sure. So you're even more scared that, I'm going to be labeled as the problem. Sure. So, however,
hopefully not though. Just to interject here,
hopefully not.
And everything that I've read, you should not use someone as your couples therapist who either one of the people have been seeing individually. That's apparently a big conflict of interest. So don't try to drag your significant other in with your therapist, because that's your person. They've only heard your side. They've got this probably very colorful image of your significant other that's not necessarily the full picture. So if everything that I've read says that couples therapy is best done with a neutral person who does not have any sort of flavor of either one of you.
That's very important. Having said that, for anybody that is in a relationship where they've been going to counseling, but they're having a lot of trouble with their spouse joining them, I believe that that's something that, to me, that really feels like abandonment. When you're at a place where you can say, please come to counseling with me. Like, I'm not trying to criticize you or judge you or label you as the problem. I just want the best relationship possible with you.
Yeah.
And they say, I'm not doing that. I really feel like that's, not to get so dark so quickly, but that's something that really needs to be, you really need to be thinking about what the next step is when it comes to boundaries and consequences, and possibly even a separation.
Possibly, yeah. You know what I would say to that person who's saying, my significant other is not going to go to therapy no matter what I say? Hopefully, go alone at first. I hate to say that because they're like, well, what good's that going to do? But honestly, it could do a lot of good. It really could do a lot of good. I know that I dove into all my own work on my own for the first solid year. There's no way I would have tried to convince my partner to come with me to something like that, because I was sure I would get that kind of response. So I just did all my own work for a year. And after a while, he was like, man, I am seeing some serious positive changes in you. And I like what I'm seeing. I want to do some work too. So you never know. You never know.
No, you really don't. And the biggest problem is you don't know what you don't know. And
that's a big one. Yeah.
And so for me, when I was in counseling, individual and in couples counseling, there was a ton of stuff that would come up, and I just had a tendency to think, like, I don't know, it sounds really stupid, but I guess I just thought I knew it all. And which is like the dumbest thing to think ever when you say it out loud.
That too. No, I thought that too. You don't know what you don't know.
But you don't know what you don't know. And and sometimes when they start to get into your conflict cycle and they say, well, here's one reason you might be doing this, or here's one reason they might be doing that. I mean, you really start to see things from a different perspective. And even if you go individually, you can start to get some tools to navigate those really rough conflicts. I mean, like we always say, it takes two to fight, and you can learn how to stop that cycle. Okay, I want to go to the next question. So Dolly says, this is so important. Forgiving myself for acting toxic and manipulative when I didn't realize. And that just made me...
man. Do you feel that?
Yeah.
When you read that? Like
For sure.
I remember one day when it hit me that I was at least 50% of the problem in my... Really, I went into my divorce and came out of it like, good thing that's over.
Absolutely.
Everything's going to be fine because it wasn't me. And then one day I was like, it was a solid 50% me. And I had so much guilt. So much guilt. I still sometimes have some guilt over it.
Yeah.
You know, it's not an easy thing to forgive yourself for what you didn't know you were doing wrong.
And that's exactly it, Dolly. I mean, we all have to forgive ourselves for. There's probably a Maya Angelou quote. I'm probably quoting her wrong, but she says
oh yes, there is. I know it. Do you know?
Can you quote it better than me?
Yeah,
please.
It's that quote that says, "When you know better, do better."
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, but you know what? Until you do know better, you're probably were doing the best you could. That's what I try to tell myself.
Yeah.
I know that even though I had no idea what kind of toxicity I was bringing to my marriage, that I was doing the best that I could with the tools that I had. And that helps me sleep a little bit, you know?
And
that if I had the good tools, I would have used them, you know?
Yes. And just the self-reflection to say, I do want to forgive myself for the toxic and manipulative behaviors that I was practicing. That's a huge step in self-reflection. And that should be rewarded. I mean, you should get credit for that. And when you know better, do better. And that's really all we can do in this cycle that we're in. I mean, it's just we're all just learning, and we're all just trying to have the best relationship possible.
And I think you, Jimmy, and I both have that as a mission to know better and to continually do better all the time.
Yeah, and that leads us to the next question. I don't have a name, but healthy conflict resolution, how to repair after an argument. I'm sure we talked a lot about this in our conflict episode, Turning Conflict to Closeness.
Episode 2. Mm-hmm.
However, just to retouch real quick on repairs specifically, because I think that Gottman does a really good job on that.
Mm-hmm. That's our Gottman drop for that episode.
That's our Gottman drop. There'll only be 70 more. Right. A repair. I'm going to please chime in because I'll butcher this, but
sure.
So when you're in a conflict, which usually happens for me, I'm not cognizant that we've now entered a conflict. I mean, it just kind of,
there's no bell or anything.
Mm-hmm. No, all of a sudden, I find myself, why do I feel like steam is blowing out of my ears, you know?
Yeah.
And so, that's usually my cue is I'm tense. I can feel something's happening, and I usually that's when I usually say, hold on, I'm probably saying some things that I don't. I'm an external processor, so I'm probably talking a lot and saying a lot of things that I don't necessarily want to say, or at least I could say it in a better way. Anyways,
I like that better. I like that better than the way we do it, which is at some point I realize things have gotten heated, and I go, "Wait a minute, is this a fight?" And he'll be like, "Yes, it is." I have to ask.
Funny. Yeah.
I need a bell. Then maybe I'll get a bell.
Are we having a fight right now? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that, and then he'll be like, "Yes, we are." And I'm like, "Oh no, it is."
So a repair, in my eyes, can be anything that can be a part of a repair, where one of us has the maturity and self-awareness to say, hold on, things seem like it's getting heated. That's part of a repair.
It is, isn't it? That moment right there changes things.
It changes things. And that's what a repair is, essentially. It's we're headed in a direction, and whether you're doing this intentionally or unintentionally, I want to kind of change the direction of where this is going. There's tension building up. I want to deflate it. There's hostility building up. I want to de-escalate. And sometimes this happens naturally. You or your partner, you might see sometimes when you're getting upset and they either make a joke or you make a joke.
Yes.
And it lowers the tension just a little bit to where that's
I
a
like that a
repair.
lot.
I mean, that, the other,
I like that a lot.
The other examples. Yeah. And that's healthy.
We do that and
it's a great sign
and
of,
it's new. It's when we didn't start out fighting like that. And now it's like a new thing that we've introduced in our fights. And when things will get uncomfortable, he'll suddenly start tickling me. And usually, I know, and I hate tickling. It's not something I enjoy.
Oh, no.
But I'll be like, but I recognize it now as him thinking, this is getting uncomfortable and I want to lighten it up a little bit. And so I appreciate that. While I hate being tickled, I appreciate that he wants to lower the tension. And it usually always works.
It's like a bid
I don't
for
recommend
connection.
that for other people. Find a different thing. But that's our thing. And
like, please don't do that to your partner. Yeah.
Gosh, I hate tickling. Yeah.
Unless they like it.
Some people like it. Yeah. Weirdos.
That's
yeah.
But it's those little things in the heat of the moment where it's essentially, whether it's, like I said, whether you're conscious or not, it's like a bid for connection. It's a bid for reconnection.
That's exactly what it is. And that's what it feels like. Don't you feel more connected in those moments when the tension's broken? And
it's essentially saying, I love you and I care about you more than any fight we're going to have.
Yeah.
The other repair is obvious, and it's an apology. And I talked about this a little bit, but I want to reiterate some things that I missed. Apologies. Well, we went over some not apologies, which are always fun to include.
Right.
And they usually include buts. I'm sorry, but I wouldn't have done that if you wouldn't have done this. Well, I'm sorry that you feel that way. Or I said I was sorry. Can you just get over it? Things like that. Fine. I'm sorry. I mean, geez, stuff like that.
Or I wouldn't have done that if you hadn't.
Exactly.
Like
Those are not apologies.
No.
In my view, apologies take ownership. They take accountability for. It doesn't mean you're taking accountability for everything. Just just whatever you believe your contribution was, because that's usually the mature thing to do. When you get into a fight, like we said, it takes two to fight. That means that you take ownership and you accept responsibility for how you contribute to this. And you could always say, "I could have done this better."
Oh,
Anyways,
that's a good one.
So
I think another vital part of an apology too is acknowledging the other person's emotions. Sometimes I don't even necessarily want my partner to admit that they did something wrong. I just want them to acknowledge that I'm upset, and then I feel a lot better.
And that brings us to validation, because validation is a huge repair. Yeah. If your partner comes to you hurt or upset, especially if it's about something that you did, I like to think, if my partner's hurt about something, I don't get to decide that I didn't hurt them. That's not,
excellent point.
So now that's not to say that you are in the wrong. We're not thinking about this as right and wrong, because then your mind gets real clouded about when you start to think, well, no, she's wrong, I'm right. I mean, it's sure there are cases when it comes to abuse where there's one wrong partner, but in so many of our situations, it's not about right and wrong. And the best way to think about it is just, I care about this person. I value this person. I love this person. They're saying that they're upset about something. So I'm going to show them that they matter to me by validating their experience and their perspective. So
and
anyways,
that's easier said than done. I want to throw that out there too.
It's such a hard skill.
It's such a hard skill. It's something that you have to practice at.
Can you give me some examples of what validation would look like in the
being able to sometimes when our partner tells us that we've done something wrong, it brings up massive amounts of shame. And that's where the defensiveness comes in. That's something that I struggle with a lot. So an example of validation is when we can take that shame and set it aside for a moment and focus more on what our partner is saying that they're feeling to us. And we make some sort of comment about that. Like, I can see that this really is affecting you, and that makes me sad. And just saying that to your partner is probably going to diffuse the situation quite a bit.
And like what you said earlier about kind of restating what they're feeling. A lot of times I don't know what my partner's feeling. So if I truly care and if I truly have the self-awareness in that moment, then I try to ask them, because
sometimes we're wrong. Because sometimes we're wrong.
I'm wrong a lot.
I think one time I asked my partner, I was like, you seem really angry about this. And I made that assumption. And he said, I'm not angry at all. I'm just frustrated. That's all. He's like,
Yeah.
angry is totally a different world. I'm frustrated. And I want to
Yep.
figure out how to not feel like we're beating our heads against the wall here. And I was
Yep.
like, wow, that's what I get for putting an emotion in his mouth, right?
Yep. And for any man that's watching, Frank, sometimes
He's still here. We got to hope
he's still
he
here.
is.
Sometimes she's not angry; she's hurt, and
Yeah. Yeah.
and so and exploring that and being curious enough to just to explore that with her. That's validation to for her to know that he really does care about how I'm feeling and how this impacted me, even though I know that it wasn't intentional. I know it was an accident. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt, but I can tell that he actually cares to explore this.
The feeling that our partner cares about how we feel, I think that will mostly overcome any of the transgressions too.
Really, yeah.
Maybe I'm being too generous there, but in most of the day-to-day conflicts that couples get in, I think just an expression that you care about how they feel will make up for any of the terrible towel folding or whatever it is that you've done to upset your spouse or
Absolutely.
partner.
So switching topics, just a pinch.
Sure.
Here's another question for you. I don't have a name for this one either.
Okay.
What's the best
Anonymous.
What's the best way to start a new relationship after a failed one? And I'm just going to do a quick blurb and then I'm going to let you talk because that was the way the question was worded, but I want to interject real quick and say,
Please do.
The first thing to say is that you didn't fail. You learned
good.
something, but I would never ascribe some sort of a failure. That's not the correct word. I would never say.
It can feel like that for sure.
I'm sure it feels like a failure, especially if you were hurt or you realize you made some poor choices and it led to where you are now.
Yeah.
Or maybe there was some infidelity, or you can take ownership for what happened. Your own behaviors, but I still wouldn't call it a failure. So, anyways, please continue.
That just having that label on it will probably cloud the way that you see the whole relationship, for one. So I think it would be weird of me to recommend to people that they have their old relationship fully analyzed and figured out. And I mean, I've never done that before. It's in a perfect world, we would take time after a relationship ends to look at the patterns and decide what we want. But you know what? People don't really do that. So it's a good thing. It's a good thing to aspire to, but also don't beat yourself up if you find yourself falling for somebody way before you heal the patterns that broke up your last relationship.
Right.
I want to throw that out there because I think there's a lot of people who are trying to, I'm going to be single for a year or 2 years or 3 years. And it's like, I don't know. I kind of feel like love and relationships just hits you when it hits you. And it's hard to, I don't know. It's hard to hold yourself back and become, here's what I'm trying to say with all of this. The idea that we can become some fully healed, perfect, ready to be in a relationship thing before we get into a relationship is a really kind of silly thing to hope for. There, I said that.
And you've said it before that the goal isn't for you to be perfectly healed before your next relationship.
No,
but
relationships are places where healing takes place. So.
Very much so. Now, however, disclaimer on that is I would never want someone to jump into the next relationship until they've at least understood the patterns and behaviors and cycles that kind of plagued the last one.
For sure. Do some thinking on it. Definitely do some thinking on it, but don't think that you need to have it all figured out before you get into something.
No.
How about that?
I don't have it all figured out now, and I'm 10 years into marriage.
Yeah,
so.
I know what you mean. I know exactly what you mean.
So you probably won't get to the have it all figured out stage, but you might get to the why do I keep picking emotionally unavailable people stage, and that's a very important stage to come.
So let's talk about picking people.
I love Fix Your Picker.
Oh, I do too.
No,
I do too.
I like to plug Adam too.
Adam again?
I've never even met Adam, but I like to plug Adam.
I don't know if he's listening.
Fix Your Picker on Instagram. He's not listening, but
he's not
maybe
listening,
maybe we can get him a little boost on Instagram.
Maybe. So at the end of my book, I talk about his name is Van Epp, is the author, and he developed what he calls the relationship attachment model. And these are steps that you should go through in a certain order so that you're not diving headfirst into something without thinking. Is this what you were hoping that I would be talking about when it comes
I love
to
when you
choosing
talk
someone?
anything, so you please.
Okay, cool. So here you are, this person you had a relationship fail and you're trying to get into this new relationship and you don't want to mess it up. You don't want the pitfalls of the last one to be plaguing you again. Van Epp talks about 5 bonding areas that we want to do in a very particular order. I think our normal order is usually very bad, where there's probably physical contact and nonstop self-disclosure and way too much togetherness. I'm sure that sounds familiar to you guys. That's how I would do relationships.
Absolutely.
But Van Epp talks about, he wants you to think about the sliders on an equalizer, like you're a DJ turning up music, right? And the first level that we want to turn all the way up to the top is no. Should I give you all 5 first? Let me do that. No.
Sure.
Trust, rely, commit, and then touch. And that's a tough one. That's a tough one to throw in last because I know that's everyone's favorite part. But he suggests that when you're getting to know someone in a new relationship, know is first, as in KNOW.
Right.
Start out with increasing levels of disclosure. Don't tell them about your childhood trauma on the first date, right? Get to know the little stuff. And then maybe some increasingly more spicy things. And anyway, don't throw everything that you've got at them hoping to build this bond, right? Because the second step is trust. Once this person has shown you that these pieces of information that you're throwing out, they can be trusted with it because they're reacting in a way that makes you feel good. They're also asking questions of a similar intensity level and revealing similar things about themselves that also make you feel good. Once you get past that equalizer, you can turn up rely, which means they've shown that they want to know you and they are worth knowing. They've shown that they're trustable. You can come to rely on them a little bit. The next step would be commitment. See how we're not getting engaged after 1 week of dating? The next step is commitment after you've seen that you can know them, trust them, and rely on them, and then touch. And that doesn't mean don't hold their hand until all those things have happened. It's up to you really, but it's just a wonderful model to kind of help us. It kind of helps keep us from getting overly committed too soon, which I know a lot of the physical stuff can really make cloudy.
We don't talk about that enough, but
right.
You just touched on something that is almost paramount when it comes to like dating. I mean, it's, and I don't want to sound like a prude because I understand how you can come off as a prude real quick, but
it does sound prudish, doesn't it? Yeah.
But if you just think about some of your last relationships, some of your last relational regrets, how many started with getting physical too quickly? And we know that when you get physical with somebody and when there's, I don't know what the correct words are for a podcast, but there's certain amounts of oxytocin bonding going on, and you bond to this person potentially before you even know them.
Before before step 1.
And you've essentially skipped a bunch of steps.
Yeah.
And that creates massive issues later down the line. And we don't want to go back and point to that. Well, maybe I shouldn't have slept with him on the 3rd date. But you don't realize how dangerous that is. And another thing, without sounding too prudish, you're not really missing out on anything by waiting to sleep with them. I mean, really, if you really put a goal in there, I'm not going to sleep with them for 6 months. And 6 months is no one's going to do that.
That's a long time.
That was stupid. I'm sorry,
Jimmy. Or however long. You know what?
I just really want you to have the best relationship, guys.
But truly, for some people it would be a month, and for other people it may be 6 months, and for some people it
depending
would be more
on your
a week.
religious system.
Sure.
It maybe never. I mean, not never. Sorry, never while you're dating. I'm just saying,
right.
I'm going to cut all of this.
I don't think you should.
I'm just kidding. But really, the important part is that you do a massive amount of disservice by getting too physical too quick. And people don't talk about that enough because it sounds like you're, oh, what are you preaching at the church this weekend? I mean, I'm just saying like, but it's true.
Well,
and
I'm
true.
coming at this from a biology and neuroscience point of view.
Yeah, for sure.
Oxytocin and bonding chemicals, those are, you can't deny that. No matter what your religious leanings or prudishness, I mean, you might have absolutely no qualms about that. You might be the type of person who thinks, I'm an independent modern person. I can sleep with whomever I want as soon as I want. You can think all those things, but biology and neuroscience and chemistry will say that when those chemicals get flowing in our head, we're not able to make great decisions about someone.
Sure. So. And think about after we get physical too quick, we get so lenient with other behaviors that we would have been like, I'm not cool with that, or that's not what I want in a partner. But instead, we feel so bonded to this person, we almost feel like, well, I've already slept with them. I should make this work. Because if you cut it off, you might think to yourself, well, I'm not just sleeping around, so I'm going to make this work. Right. But it's but you shouldn't make this work. This isn't supposed to work.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we've all been there, and it's destructive. And if I was telling somebody, if I'm talking to somebody older than me, I can understand how they'd be like, oh my gosh, just roll their eyes. But if I'm talking to somebody younger than me, I have no problem being like, bro, don't make the same mistakes I did. But anyways.
Oh, they won't listen because they're younger.
Oh my gosh. That's a whole nother.
I know. That's a whole nother one, isn't it?
Oh, no. Speaking of that, I have a great question. Oh, I'm sorry. Sure. You weren't done yet. I
am done and I'm ready for your question. I'm excited. Okay. Let's do this.
So this tags right into this because I got a question from Z plus X Milson. Not sure what their names are, but that Z, maybe it's Zach. I don't know what the X name is. Oh. Anyways, they said they thanked us for the podcast. They said they've been married for 6 months, but they got married quickly. So they wanted to figure out more how to do this healthy. So one, that's amazing that you're even thinking in those terms because that sets you up for success already. Yeah. But I wanted to talk real quick about kind of, I remember I spoke to an older man, and he said the worst thing, and I'll never forget it. He said, whenever I don't have the butterflies anymore for a partner, I get rid of them. And I was
I know people like that.
I was like, that's the worst thing I've ever heard. I didn't say that to him. I just said, oh gosh, that's weird. But
I hope you did say that.
I didn't say that. I said, oh, what an interesting perspective, sir. Right. but I want to talk about that because we oftentimes kind of get mixed up in thinking there's different stages of your relationship, and it's perfectly great to go through all of them. And I don't want anyone thinking that the butterfly stage is supposed to last forever, and I don't want anyone getting discouraged that that mature love is not as good as
I'm glad you said that.
As the infatuation stage.
I'm glad you said that. I think we are both probably people who are in the mature love stage of our relationships. And it's definitely different. It's definitely different.
Of course.
Than the butterfly stage. But
it's meant to be different.
It's meant to be different. But I would not say that it's not as good.
No.
It's good in a completely different way.
Yes. The butterfly stage is a little bit dangerous because part of what makes it butterflies is like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen next. Like, oh my gosh, are they going to text me or not?
Like, good, not
it's roller coaster good.
Yeah,
and you know what's not super fun? Yes.
Being on a roller coaster for 12 years. Yeah.
Exactly. Like everything gets old after a while. Like the roller coasters last 30 seconds for a reason because like that's about all you want. Yeah. Anyways, I don't know where I'm going with that. Other than just like
thing all the way out, I think, but you know what? Let's do that though. Let's carry this theme park thing all the way out. So that man that was talking to you, he loves that roller coaster experience. And as soon as that roller coaster comes to a stop, he's like, I want to get back on the roller coaster. I don't want any other kind of ride. That's just what I'm looking for.
Right.
So that's tough because, like you said, especially from a neurochemistry point of view, the roller coaster phase is not meant to last very long at all.
No.
And I got my book out earlier for everybody watching going, wow, this is rude. She's thumbing through a book right now. They are talking about in the book
Ricky's
How
doing actual
long?
research here.
I am. I'm not researching while we're recording.
I'm just saying, this isn't just our opinions, people. Like she's in
Right.
academia.
I am.
Yeah.
So let me find this because it talked
Okay.
about I think there were 5 distinct stages of relationships, and it talked about that first one and how long it was supposed
Everything's
to last.
5.
And
It was the 5 bonding
Totally.
stages. It was the 5.
Great
If you're
feedback.
making anything, this is just a tip for anybody making, in academia, just make it 5. This
Just
is
make
the
it
5
5.
stages of, there's 5 stages of grief, Kubler-Ross.
Yeah.
Just go ahead and make it 5, people. So while you're thumbing through, I just want to mention a quick point when it comes to that man's, those decisions like you were talking about. He wanted to get back on the roller coaster, right? Here's an important point. Guess what he didn't have in his life? A long-term healthy relationship.
I believe it. Yeah.
Because that's just not what, and you could say, well, that's not what he's looking for. Some people are like that, where they're like, that's not what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for a long-term healthy relationship. I'm looking for flings.
Sure.
And sure,
Sure.
that's that.
But I'll bet you
in
that the guy
theory,
that you were talking to wants a long-term relationship.
even
I
if
bet
he doesn't
does.
know it,
Yeah.
that's
Even if
really
he
what we
doesn't know
all
it.
want. Well, because some
Yeah.
people, they're just, especially men, not picking on men, but a lot of men are like, I'd rather just go from girl to girl. When this one
Roller
gets too
coaster to roller coaster.
yeah. But my theory is that when he gets to the end of his life, he will realize all of that was a little bit empty. He was
Maybe.
afraid. He was
Yeah.
afraid to actually be vulnerable. He was afraid of actual intimacy. And so this
Totally.
is his mask of like, oh, I'm just going to get with these girls.
This is great.
And
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And this roller coaster is great. But anyways,
Yeah, you don't ever hear any stories about aging playboys who are really glad that they didn't make any long-term connections. Nobody
No.
writes stories about that.
No, they usually die alone. And
Yeah,
this
full
got
of
really
regret.
dark again.
It
I'm
did.
so sorry.
This is dark. Well,
I'm
let's
really
talk about
sorry.
the 5 stages of relationships. Maybe that'll
Nobody
lighten
wants
it up
to
a
hear
little
that,
bit.
Ricky. I'm just kidding.
So Schultz in 2007. That's if you want to look this up. They say that the first stage, our roller coaster stage, is infatuation or the honeymoon stage. And during this stage, it's oxytocin that's flowing through our brain. We feel crazy in love. We experience ecstasy when the person's near, and we're depressed when they're away. And it says that this stage in general only lasts, are you bracing yourself? 1 to 2 years.
Which
1
is
to
still
2
a long
years.
time.
That's still a long time, but for people like you and me who've been in long-term relationships, like very long-term relationships, that's nothing. That's
No.
a blip, isn't it?
yeah.
And
It's not designed to last because
It's not.
you almost can't function properly.
I can't function. Do you remember that stage?
Yes,
I
you
can't.
can't.
No.
It almost seems silly. I mean, it's just, yeah.
I don't know. I guess, yeah. Well, that's
It's wonderful though. It's a wonderful stage, and
It feels great.
And
not for
I don't know if
12
you said the
years.
word, but limerence is usually what I think of when you say that.
Yeah.
But and it's wonderful. You should experience it and you should enjoy it. Just don't
Yeah.
enjoy it thinking that this is the way it's supposed to be always. And if it's
Right.
not like this, if it doesn't feel like this, Ricky,
Yeah.
then something's wrong. No, not necessarily.
right. That's the idea of your acquaintance who wanted to keep being on the roller coaster forever, because a lot of people feel really afraid when they feel the butterflies fading and the roller coaster coming to a stop.
Yeah.
And really, the second stage is called reality. How much fun does
Yeah.
that sound? It does not sound like any fun at all.
Very little.
This is also called the power struggle stage. And it says
Yeah.
it's where you and your partner realize that you're not as similar or perfect for each other as it once seemed. This is kind of a scary stage. And I think lots and lots of relationships crumble when they get to this point. Specifically because people say, I'm not on the roller coaster anymore. I'm not having fun,
Yeah. They weren't prepared for it. Nobody warned them.
And Disney certainly didn't prepare us for this stage.
Oh,
because they
gosh.
did not let us know
No.
that was coming. We're led
No.
to believe when we're very young that the perfect relationship will feel like butterflies and roller coasters forever. And
No.
it's not meant to.
People out there, please tell me some movies where the main characters have actual relationships and they work through actual conflicts in a
I'm
healthy
drawing
way.
a blank. Yeah, I'm drawing a blank. There's
find me
conflict
some-
in every romantic relationship, but not healthy conflict or
No.
or realistic conflict. No.
No.
I love movies.
Find
but
me
that's-
some real validation and empathy and repairs and apologies
Yeah.
and makeups. I mean,
and
it's just-
reality, right?
yeah. And not just like throw me up against the wall, makeup.
Right. Butterflies and roller coaster.
Butterflies. Yeah. Because that's not sustainable, nor is it realistic. Anyways, what's the third stage?
The third stage is the adjustment stage, and this is actually where most divorces happen. I was really surprised to hear that.
Yeah.
But this is the part where couples
I don't
have
feel like adjusting.
No, they know. This is just who I am. Deal with it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
This is the part where couples have to be willing to adjust to each other in order to make necessary improvements in order for the relationship to survive. How unsexy is that?
Absolutely. Yep. And this is where love actually comes in, because in the beginnings it's infatuation.
Yeah.
I mean, there's really no mature love. We sacrifice for that person and we're selfless for that person
Yeah.
because it's extremely beneficial to us. One,
Right.
and it's just easy because it's reciprocated. It's reciprocative.
Oh, you're talking about in the very beginning.
In the very
right?
beginning, yes.
Yeah.
So when there's actual opportunity for real mature love, I mean, real love isn't being walked on, but at the same time, it's a mutual sacrificial relationship where
Yeah.
I'm going to serve you not just because I think you're going to serve me back.
Right.
I'm choosing to love you, and accept you.
Well, I found, I don't know if my partner felt this way too, but during that stage, that adjustment stage where
Yeah.
I noticed myself doing weird, out of character, sacrificial things. And I'm not talking about anything self-abandoning. I'm just saying, like, I'm learning to cook a casserole because he loves casseroles. What am I
Aw.
doing, right? That's when I was going, I must really like this guy,
Yeah.
Nobody's going to be throwing me up against a wall later, and I'm making a casserole because he likes it. Like, that's the
Yeah.
stage where you start to realize that I'm doing things because I really care about this person.
Yes, and how wonderful is it if it's continually reciprocated and not just in the
Yeah.
beginning, but if that
Yeah.
trend continues, you can make almost anything work when you have
I agree with that.
reciprocated love. Yeah. What's the 4? Are we on 4 or 5?
Yeah, we're on 4 now. This is the challenge stage. So you've made it through the adjustment period. Suddenly I know how to make casseroles and he's folding towels correctly. And now we're at the challenge stage. This is also known as the commitment stage, where both individuals are actively working on the relationship. They're working to improve the relationship and themselves. But if
Yep.
you can get to the challenge stage where both individuals are working on things, that's where you're going to find a lot of growth individually as well.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
huge. That's huge. I can't understate that enough. I don't know that I would have been able to make some of those huge personal changes had I been single. I'm going to say that. That might be a little controversial, but I wouldn't have
No, you're
had to
absolutely
push
right.
myself outside of the comfort zone like I have when I'm alone.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. That growth, I mean, we learn so much and we can grow and heal in our relationships so much.
Yes.
Yeah. What's
And
number
that
5?
last stage, mature love. I don't
Yeah.
have to say, no, I should say something about it because a lot of the people who are listening may not have
say
experienced
something
it, right?
about it, Ricky.
I will. You say something right now. This is where both of the individuals continually grow and change throughout the long-term duration of the relationship without it being a crisis. This is where you can grow with someone and see them kind of change a little bit and go, I'm noticing that you're different than you used to be, and it's not threatening to me. There's a lot of security there. You both feel really good about who you are and who you might be.
I hear a lot of emotional maturity there, which some people can't get to that stage. I mean,
It's a tough one.
what's been mulling around in my brain lately is like people can only meet you as deep as they can meet themselves,
Absolutely.
and we want you to get to that mature love stage, but I fear that takes a level of work and
Well,
self-awareness.
listen to all the turmoil in those middle stages.
Yes.
Seriously, you've got your roller coaster in the beginning, and then you've got 3 different rides that don't sound like they're very much fun to be on. So it's tough to get through those to get to the mature stage where
and the goal
things can move.
and the goal isn't just to stay together forever. I mean, the goal
No,
isn't
I'd agree
just
with that. I'd
the
agree
goal
with
isn't
that.
just to coast. The goal is growth, and
Right. Because I think all of us know couples who are in their 60s and 70s who aren't
of course.
necessarily fantastic couples.
No,
gonna say
that's
that,
not,
you know?
Yeah, that's not what I want for. So,
Right.
so going back to real quick, this question evolved because of this person who is a newlywed. I guess 6 months is a newlywed, right?
Absolutely.
We're going to call it newlywed.
Yeah. That's new.
So the advice that I would give to newlyweds, because I just love newlyweds because they're not coming at me with so much like, well, my husband won't go to counseling. How do I solve this problem?
Yeah, they're so
I'm like,
excited.
boy, that's a tough one. They're not at that stage. They're at like, they're either completely oblivious to what do I need? What do I even need to be working on?
Or they have
or-
so much hope, you know, and so much idealism. Yeah, they're so idealistic about the future. It's going to be great. I love it.
Or they want the butterflies to always continue. Or they're like,
yeah.
or they're like the Milsons, which are just like, hey, I want to learn how to do this right, which is just fantastic. So anyways, so one thing that keeps popping up in my head is like, so often there's a dominant personality and a submissive personality. I don't know if you'd agree with that, but it just seems like a common theme that I see in relationships consistently.
You know why that probably is. The chances are very low that two people in a relationship have the same level of influence, right?
Right.
So no matter
dominant. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but no matter what, somebody's going to be a little bit more and somebody's going to be a little less. And sometimes it's way different.
So can you give some advice? Can I give some advice to anyone who has a dominant personality? You give a little bit of advice to if you have a submissive personality. Sure. So dominant, if you feel like, and you might not think you have the dominant personality, just ask your spouse. Which one of us? Yeah, they'll tell you. If your spouse says, yeah, you're absolutely the dominant one, then you should just believe that. That's the first step in you acknowledging, maybe I am the dominant. Okay. So there's one stat that I bring up from the Gottmans all the time, which is, he said in heterosexual couples, when a man doesn't accept the influence of his female partner, there's an 81% chance that relationship will self-destruct. Yeah, and accepting the influence is very difficult if you have a dominant personality, because you're used to, regardless of of the why, you're used to kind of running the show a little bit. Like this is, you might unintentionally dismiss them. You might invalidate them. So all of my advice would center around, you have to be kind and warm to your partner
and open. I mean, if we're going to talk about influence, you have to use the word open.
You're so right. So accepting the influence is encouraging and inviting. I'm not going to say her, because she could be the dominant, and she needs to do that. Whoever has the dominant personality needs to be open and encourage and invite that other person's feelings and perspectives, because oftentimes the submissive personality is not very good at doing that. So
no, let me talk to a little bit to the more submissive folks, because that's absolutely me, and it's certainly a trait of the more anxiously attached as well. Our struggle is going to be not in being dominant, because we're probably real bad at that. It's probably not going to happen, but overcoming our fear of putting our influence out there. I know the terror is that I'm going to suggest something or say something that they're not going to receive well, and I'll be sitting here with all these horrible emotions that I don't want to experience. So that's our struggle. If it sounds hard, you're probably on the right path, and it probably needs to be done. For me, as a very submissive partner, a good first step was putting little influences out there, right? I wouldn't try to get my partner to go to couples counseling right off the bat. What's a good small thing? I would suggest the restaurant that I would like us to go out to eat, and I would notice when they accept that influence. If you're with a partner who's extremely dominant and they're really bad at accepting your influence, you might just have a talk about how important it is that every now and then one person or the other chooses the restaurant. Moving up from these baby steps, your influence will grow. So of course you've got ideas about, well, I would love for them to be open to listening. And that takes a little bit of practice. Start off small, exerting your influence in little ways, and talk to them about the little things that you can do to even things out a little bit. Take turns planning dates is a great one. Take turns. My parents had something they called the conversation bear that they would have to pass back and forth so the other person could talk without being interrupted. That kind of thing goes a long way in balancing the power a little bit. There's all kinds of little things that we can do to move up to the more advanced levels.
Yeah, but I love the way that you said that about you have to really get comfortable, and it's, even though it's extremely difficult, but having those tough conversations, because if you have a submissive personality, it's going to be so difficult for you to have to stand up for yourself, to express a hurt, because you might have some fear of abandonment. You might have some fear of where this is going to go. What if this just escalates into a conflict?
What if they leave me because I'm saying things that they don't want to hear?
Some of this is happening subconsciously. You're not actually saying, what if they leave me if I tell them that they hurt my feelings?
Oh, it's right. Good point. But that's where it's coming from.
But that's where it's coming from. And we have to figure out, I mean, one of the most important things you can do is just ask, like, what am I afraid of? Am I really showing up as my authentic self? Am I really telling them? Am I comfortable telling them that I am upset with something that they did? We have to have those tough conversations.
Right. And if you're not yet, and you may not be yet, you can get there by starting small. So,
yeah. And then the last thing I would say to the dominant is, like I said before, inviting those and encouraging those conversations is so validating to your partner. That's so
helpful. I my own partner, when I told him, like, hey, I notice that I'm not exerting myself in our relationship. I'm not putting my opinions out. Exerting's the wrong word. I noticed that I'm not asserting myself or my opinions and my wants, and that bothers me, and I'm sure that bothers you. Would you be able to help me by maybe giving me some prompts, ask me some questions, and I'm going to do my best to be out with it, even if it's scary. And Jimmy, we are coming up on 4 years, me and my partner, and I still have trouble when he says, what restaurant would you like to go to tonight? There's still a part of me that's like, oh, don't suggest something that he wouldn't like. It still does that.
Isn't that amazing? Yes.
That's tough. I know tough. He's not going anywhere, but there's still part of, a little part of me inside that says,
and those are the little things.
Like?
Yeah.
And that's
imagine, And so, but I think, I know you've gotten better at talking about when something bothers you.
Yeah, but I'm just saying I still feel it. That's the thing. It's still there. It doesn't completely go away. I just have tools to deal with it now.
Yes, and that's so important. That goes back to the being fully healed. Like, it's not about that. It's really just about, like, recognizing our own patterns.
Absolutely.
And the last thing I'll say about the dominant personality is sometimes they are extremely averse to feedback or apologizing. And that's something that, if you identify as a dominant personality, I want you to challenge yourself and really think, do I ever apologize for anything?
Ooh. Yeah,
because
that's tough.
That really does help your partner. It reassures your partner that, like, that humility is like, hey, I don't want to hurt you. I don't, there might be times where I unintentionally, and I want you to bring it up to me, and I'm apologizing, and it's a cycle of that's really how love shows up, and how that your partner will feel loved.
Yeah.
That brings me to one other question.
Great.
And I've been getting this question a lot lately, and I don't have a great answer for it, so I need your help.
Okay.
This was from Louisa. She said, what are the most common needs men have, and how to understand men's needs? I feel like I talk a lot about women's needs. I mean, I talk a lot about relational needs, and that gets misconstrued as, oh, he's talking about what women need. But really, what I'm talking about is what your relationship needs from both parties. Anytime I talk about validation, that's not something that your wife needs. That's something that we all need.
Absolutely.
Sometimes men don't know that they need it.
Totally. And it might even be a little bit dangerous to pigeonhole certain kinds of needs as men's and women's.
That's true.
Because, like what you just said, it minimizes the fact that men need all the things that women are saying that they need too.
Yes. And you know how you said this before. Do you know how you get around that? you ask your partner,
You
what
ask.
do you need
Yes.
to feel loved and
Yeah.
valued and appreciated in this
Yeah.
relationship? Because we all have different needs.
Yeah.
And that's an episode that we'll do another time where we kind of just dive into
Needs. Yes.
needs. Is
I
it
love it.
okay to need things from
That'll
my
be a fun
spouse
one.
or my partner?
Yeah.
So
So
if I was giving an answer to that, besides the fact that I
Sure.
would just tell them, well, you probably should just ask. Sometimes men aren't great when it comes to self-awareness, and he might say, I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't really need anything from anyone, because
Yeah.
they might have a tendency to be more independent, yada, yada, yada.
or ashamed of having needs, like the anxious
Oh my gosh.
folks. I didn't know what I needed. I thought
Very
I had
ashamed.
ideas about my needs, but when I really dug into it, the things I actually needed were completely different, and that was super
Wow.
surprising.
Yeah, that's powerful. I'm going to make you elaborate on that at another time.
Okay.
If I had to guess, if you come to your male partner and you ask him what he needs, and he just says he doesn't really engage with you. I've talked about this before, so I'll make it brief. But
Okay.
I believe men absolutely love it and feel valued when it comes to appreciation. I would hit appreciation hard. I would tell both spouses to hit appreciation hard, but I'm just saying, if I'm
Yeah.
talking to someone who's like, I want to please my man, how do I do it?
Yeah.
Appreciation is huge.
What's
Just
a great way that women can show their partner appreciation? Just a
men love to
couple
be
examples.
appreciated for any contributions that they're making. So,
So compliments, like
Oh, yeah.
like compliments for things that they've done. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, compliments for things that they do ongoing. If they fix things around the house, like, oh my gosh, I love it that you fixed the fridge this
Okay.
weekend. Like, it saved us money. I
Yeah.
can see how smart you are. It's amazing. Like, I don't know how you do all that, but that's fantastic. So appreciation is huge, and that kind of goes with admiration. That's so important for both couples. But he really wants to know that you still desire him. That's a massive.
I think
yeah.
you said that in our last episode too.
Yep.
So us initiating some sort of physical affection goes
Yeah,
a very
most men are
long
physical
way.
touch. So just coming up and initiating some hugs and some physical touch and slap
You
on
guys
the
love
butts.
that.
I mean,
Okay.
I don't.
Flirting. Yeah.
There's not that flirting. You just you touched on something that's so. We don't talk about it very often, but this is really when you're getting down to those stages of love and you want to keep things engaged and lively.
Yeah.
I mean, flirting. Who talks about you got to flirt
I
with your
know.
spouse? You got to flirt with your partner.
Yeah, especially in the longer term mature love stage.
Yes.
Flirting is like a little mini roller coaster that you can
Yes.
hop on when
can
you're in the
do-
mature love stage.
Now I fully understand how difficult this is when you're in those challenging stages, especially
Yeah.
when kids come into the mix.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
You're very stressed. Work's
tired.
stressful. Everything's stressful. Like, we get it, but this is your most important relationship. So
Yeah.
let's all take some accountability and not just say, well, I can't do this and I can't do that because of this and this. We should be saying, like, I want to flirt with you. I want you to
Yeah.
feel desired. So
Can I put
here's
something kind of controversial
please.
in here? You can cut it if it's too controversial.
Love that.
Just saying.
I'm going to
So-
cut it right there, just so
Yeah.
people are like,
Oh,
"What
and they'll
in the
never
heck
know."
did she say?" Yeah,
It always kills me when I hear people talk about their children being way more important to them than their spouse, and then
Yeah.
it's like, but like, I don't like the hierarchy that people put. If
Of
you've
course.
got your family and you're putting people on different hierarchy, different levels
Yeah.
of importance to you, that's super problematic. And
Yeah.
and I think that your spouse should be every bit as important to you as your children are. And that includes keeping that relationship lively and fun and making time to do that.
you couldn't be more right. Now
Okay,
I understand.
so it made the cut.
It made the cut.
Yeah,
Now
excellent.
I understand and empathize with people who say, "Well, my partner, I would love to do that, but my partner, I feel like I'm the only one that's doing that." So it gets tiring. It gets
Yeah.
very exhausting when you feel like you're the only one carrying that emotional weight. I think the last thing I want to say is that it keeps coming in my mind whenever we talk about all of these things. I saw somebody wearing this shirt. Have you ever seen like a shirt or a bumper sticker that says, "Be kind"?
Yeah.
Like just be kind.
Absolutely. Hmm.
And I kept thinking, like, when I think about my relationships, like kindness, so much falls into that. Like, if our goal was really just to be kind to each other, how much would be prevented and how much would be, I don't know, leveraged? I mean, if you really think about it, kindness, you wouldn't be able to put so many of our natural destructive defaults into that category. Like, criticism isn't being kind.
Yeah.
And defensiveness isn't being kind, and dismissiveness, and like
Yeah.
blaming them, and getting into fights instead of healthy conflicts. None of that stuff is kind. And you know what's
Yeah.
crazy is, this is pretty deep, but it's not dark.
I like that. We can go that
After,
direction.
when Emily and I were in counseling, I remember I had like this epiphany, and I said to her one night, I said, this is going to sound really stupid, but I don't want to hurt you anymore. And
Oh.
and I wasn't just talking about like a specific thing. Like, I just meant like,
Yeah.
it's something to like, that like a light bulb went off in my head, and I was like, I don't want to hurt my spouse.
I love that. Like,
or
you
partner. Like,
realized that a lot of the things that you'd been doing
Yeah.
were hurtful to her. And it
Yeah.
was like, I want to do everything I can so that that's not happening in the future. That's very
like,
sweet.
Isn't that really what loving a partner is all about? Like, I don't
Yeah.
want to hurt you. So
Yeah.
like, when we talk about all these things, and that's what I want to tell people when people come to me with all these complex problems.
Yeah.
Like, the first thing I would want to tell them is like, do you want to hurt your partner? Because because you know what they're both going to say. They're both going to say, no, I don't want to hurt my
Right.
partner. And then, okay, well, now that we have that, like, let's break that down, because because I can show you pretty quickly that like some of the things that you're doing
Yeah.
unknowingly, they're hurtful.
So let me
And-
go a step
yeah.
farther than that too. The moment that I realized that I really had feelings of actual true love for my partner was when I realized that I was willing to do difficult things to prevent his hurt. And that's when I was like, whoa, this is for real. And this may be the most real, true romantic love relationship that I've ever had, because I don't remember in the past feeling willing to go outside of my comfort zone in order to prevent somebody's hurt. Relationships in the past, I would say, well, of course I don't want to hurt them. They're my significant other. But would I do difficult things to prevent that hurt from happening? Probably
Right.
not. And then when I realized that's how I felt about Chris, my partner, that's when I knew that I really, like, this is for real. I really
Right.
love this person.
Yeah. And then you put an end to
And then
the
I put-
passive,
yeah, and then
passive
I-
aggressiveness and
I try.
silent
I try.
treatments. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I didn't say
hey,
I was perfect. I just said,
yeah,
you
isn't
know,
that funny? Even having that epiphany and realization, it doesn't mean that we suddenly stop doing all those things.
No.
We're still humans that are stuck in a lot of
I
patterns.
have to
but-
apologize for things all the time.
Oh
like,
my gosh,
I mean, you know,
constantly. Same.
but Sue Johnson has an amazing quote on that I wish I
she's the
had
best.
tattooed somewhere so that I could just look at it. But she
Yeah.
said relationship stability, it like hinges on healing the constant small tears and not
Oh, I love that.
and not the large rifts. You
Whew.
know?
Ain't that the truth, right?
Yeah,
It's true.
and that's so important, and that takes us all the way
Daily
back
things.
to repair and apologizing and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it all ties in together. But really, at the end of the day, it's just about being kind. You know,
I like it.
just be
like it.
kind, people.
Just quit being, yeah. We're going to keep this clean, but quit
Yeah.
being that what you have been. You know what I'm saying.
You know what I'm saying. We all got some things to work on. Just let's all just work on them.
Yeah.
And then hopefully we'll do an episode, because I know that everyone always thinks, well, but what if my partner doesn't work on them? Then what do I do?
Yeah.
And that's where boundaries come in, and we'll talk about that next time.
Yeah, and that gets real dark, because sometimes the answer
gets
is
real dark.
incompatibility, and you have to be somewhere
Yeah.
else.
Yeah, absolutely.
Super dark. Okay, we can't
Yeah.
end on that note.
Oh,
We can't
gosh.
end on that note. Let's think of
Oh.
something happy here. Happy
Okay.
thoughts.
Happiness. Happiness.
I have a happy
Happiness.
thought. I have a happy
Oh,
thought.
praise
okay,
God.
this is from my own week with my partner here.
Yes.
So my partner bought a 1961 Jeep Willys wagon, which,
As one does.
as one does, any man listening to this is like, wow, all right, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And any woman listening
He's like,
to
oh,
this,
so he got the one.
yeah, I guess, yeah, right. And I guess I'm not into cars. I don't understand them.
No, no, me neither.
Right. But
They
when
run on
he-
magic. So
you don't either. Okay, good. So it's not just me. But when he talks about that thing, his eyes light up. The
Yes.
conversations are long, lots of words I don't understand, right?
Yes.
And I dropped him off to go at the shop where he's working on this vehicle that's being, what's the word? It's like a remodel, but for a vehicle, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
I
Renovation, I believe the men
renovation,
call
yeah,
it.
right. A car
They don't
renovation.
call it that.
Whatever.
I promise they don't call it.
So I drop him off at the shop where he's going to be spending all day working on this vehicle. And I crank my music up and I'm about to drive off. And I'm like, Ricky, go in there and ask him about his vehicle.
Oh my gosh.
Right? And
How
I
wonderful.
turned my music off and I walk in and I was like, what are you doing on the car today? And he was like a kid in a candy shop. Do I understand a single word that he said after that moment? I do not. But that's not the point. The point was showing an interest in his happiness and joy about something. And I gotta say, like, really, like, even though I didn't know what he was talking about, like, I love seeing him excited about that stuff. And that's the kind
amazing.
of thing.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing. And I am not an unkind person, but it takes a lot for us to realize, hey, here's a moment where I can do something small that's really going to light my significant other up. And it's harder than blaring your favorite song and driving off into the sunset. It's a lot
Yep.
harder.
Yeah.
You know, there was an iced coffee I wanted to go get.
Yep.
Yeah. And new albums on my Spotify. I had things to do that day, but you know what?
Yep.
That little connection that I made with my partner, it changed the course of the day for both of
Yeah.
us.
And that isn't possible if you don't have kind of like an attitude or a thought process of intentionality.
Exactly. You're right. It's not. Normal Ricky in the past would not have had that thought. She would have just driven off. But Ricky, who's actively working on making her relationship as good as it can be, is looking for ways that she can delight and respect and admire and show an interest in her partner.
Yeah, that's beautiful because sometimes even if we're not self-centered people, sometimes we just can get caught up in our normal routines
Sure.
and all of our things that we need to get done, our stressors, our burdens, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
And we forget that like we can step out of that and show an interest in somebody's world.
Yeah.
And that's huge. You said it way better than I could.
And it
but-
wasn't an hour I spent in that shop. It was
No,
10
it was
10
5,
minutes maybe.
10 minutes.
Yeah, it was nothing. And it made
Yeah.
it was everything.
Yeah. But you touched on something that is so wonderful. If you have both partners who are intentionally, as you said, looking for opportunities to just kind of show up for each other. That really makes all the difference.
It does indeed. Well, that was a great place to
What's
end.
our next episode going to be about?
I don't know. What would be a great...
I was thinking of the darkest, deepest thing possible.
No, now I was like, ooh, that's some dark humor. I don't want to get too dark.
I was kidding.
Dealing
No,
with
I
the
was
death
kidding.
of a spouse. No, we're not going to do
Yeah.
anything.
This will all be cut.
Okay. Well, so we can throw some dark stuff out, right?
No,
We're
I'm just
cutting
kidding.
it anyway.
I'm just
No,
kidding.
I know.
We're
I'm
going to
just
cut
saying.
it. I'm gonna.
Should we wrap it up then?
Yeah, I'm gonna try to wrap.
Okay.
I'm gonna try to wrap. I'm gonna pretend like none of this happened.
Okay. Do it. Okay. No. Hey, Jimmy, this was a good one.
Gosh, wasn't it amazing?
We're losing it fast.
We really
The
are losing
ship's
it.
sinking.
The ship is sinking.
I thought my story was good. Don't cut that. I enjoy
No,
the story.
I love
Yeah.
that. No, I won't cut that.
Okay.
Well,
Hey.
I don't have any more. I don't
And-
have any more questions. I'm out of questions, but
Okay.
I loved what you said there.
I love. Okay, so then on that very positive note,
Yes, we want to keep it as positive as possible.
we'll bid
For
you
the
guys
7
adieu.
people that are still listening.
And Frank, who
And Frank.
always gets a mention. But truly, like, if you're like, shoot, they're talking about me. If you're the guy who's only listening to this because your significant other wants you to,
Oh,
I'm
thank you.
glad you're
One,
here.
yeah.
Yeah.
We're for
Truly.
you, even though you don't believe we are. We are for you.
Right. It's true. It's true. I think we're pretty kind to the Franks of the world. I do.
I sure hope. I sure try to.
Yeah. Because that's
So-
that's everything.
So yeah. So if you need to submit questions, you can you just go to our Instagram. We have emails there, and we have messages there. So
I'm Anxious Hearts Guide on Instagram.
yeah, I don't know what my handle is. Jimmy on relationships, I think.
Jimmy on relationships. And yeah.
Anyways, thank you so much for listening.
And let's end this before we say more things that need to be edited out, right?
I love that. I love that idea.
Great.
All right.
Okay.
Thank
cool.
you.
Good night.
Bye. I loved that.
Because it's